Got a lot to talk about today. Right now, the game just finished between the Giants and the Raiders. Giants ended up winning this game 34-10. I said last week that it's probably a good idea for the Giants to go ahead and lose this game because that would guarantee them the number one overall pick in the draft. Obviously, that didn't happen. They ended up winning the game. and I can't even understand it, but I will say that it appeared the Raiders were not trying to win the game. But lots to unpack in this game. There's a lot of good things that came out of it, some bad things. And honestly, I think that I'm one of those win now type of people, even though I know that for draft positioning, that would have served us well. But the Giants did themselves no favors today at keeping that spot. They moved down to the number two overall pick in the draft, which is still pretty favorable. So the Raiders have an 80% chance of having that number one pick. With a few games left to play, there's definitely going to be some jockeying of positions that's happening there. But before I get into all of that, please, if you like the content that we share on the channel, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so every time we drop some new content, you're one of the first ones to be notified. Also, happy holidays to everybody out there, regardless of what it is that you celebrate. I hope that you've been given many reasons to smile. And I hope that this year ends in a very favorable way for everyone. And your new year starts off with a bang. So happy holidays to everybody out there. And we appreciate everybody who watches our channel and participates with us. So I want to start off by saying congrats to Mike Kafka, I guess. Like, this is his first win of the season as a head coach. I don't think that his campaign has gone well for him. I know he had high hopes of being the Giants' head coach moving forward to remove that interim head coach tag, but I just don't think he's done enough. In fact, he's done more for me to feel like he should not be our head coach moving forward than for him to get that job. And I think that a lot of Giants fans feel the same way. I don't know how much I feel about ensuring that we get a seasoned veteran head coach as much as I care about just getting the right guy. I don't know who the right guy is. It's above my pay grade, and I really don't know who the right next general manager is going to be because I really haven't evaluated or looked at different GMs out there who might be somebody we want to look at, or GM candidates who might be somebody that we want to look at. Um, so I wouldn't even know where to start with the general manager position. But as far as the head coach goes, oh man, there's a lot of choices out there. There's another game to be played, but whoever comes in as the new HC of the New York Football Giants, they got some good pieces to work with to start off with. So I'm really excited about that. And then I really don't want to do that whole hypothetical shuffle about who should be our coach, whether it be um, Freeman out of Notre Dame, whether it be Tomlin if things don't work out for him in Pittsburgh, whether it be the DC out in Los Angeles with the Rams. I just don't know. I do know that last week Brian Flores put on a defensive clinic when the Giants played the Minnesota Vikings, and they did it again last week against the Detroit Lions. I really like that Brian Flores defense or a defense similar to his. So that's not to say that I want him to be our head coach, but I really like the way he has his defense playing. And whoever is our DC next year, I would love to see them have a similar type of play calling scheme that Brian Flores has. So, but congratulations to Kafka on his win. I wish he would have got it a few weeks ago, but it probably wouldn't have mattered in terms of him becoming the next head coach because he's just not the guy for that job. Um, I also want to say that it's kind of a tough spot for him to be in too, in the sense that These reps that Jackson Dart got this week were critical for his mental moving forward. Um, I think that they did too much to try to bubble wrap him and protect him from taking other hits. And you got to really let this guy play his game. And when they hinder him the way that they did, when they bubble wrap him, when they reduce the amount of opportunities that he has to just be him, to play and be free, you see what happens. Last week was a disaster. He had 33 passing yards last week. It was the worst game of his career. But today, let me bring up the stats because today he had a really decent game. Let me go to it real quick. So, where is it? I had it up. I had it up. Here we go, right here. All right, Jackson Dart was 22 with 30, 207 passing yards. He had a 73.3 completion percentage, averaged almost 7 yards a pass. He was sacked 2 times, and then he did have a grounding penalty called on him as well. And I saw that. But the good thing was that there was offsetting penalties when that happened, where he got helmet to helmet contact from a defender, so it kind of wiped that away. But he had an overall decent game, and I took a lot of notes on this game. I thought that he moved the ball well with his legs. He looked more comfortable being himself. It looks like they kind of took the reins off and said, just do you, man, play your game. And he played his game and he played it well. And he was effective when he needed to scramble and get out of the pocket. The play broke down when the coverage was good in the secondary by the Las Vegas Raiders. He was able to create with his legs when he couldn't create through the air, which was pretty good. And it looked like he was comfortable. He was loose. He was out there being Jackson Dart today. And when Jackson Dart is able and allowed to play his game his way, good things have happened. But you see, when they put the reins on him, they try to stifle him. He's trying to be and perform in a way that doesn't match with or align with his skill sets. And when that happens, just like anybody else, you try to change a person into somebody who they aren't, they're not gonna be who they are. And in many chances, they're not gonna perform well. There's only one me. There's only one Jackson Dart. Let that guy be who he is. And because they did that, he was able to create. So, but one of the things that I noticed, and I wonder how other people feel about it with Jackson Dart, is I believe, and I don't know if this is a product of receivers just not running good routes. I don't know if it's a product of the coaching staff not drawing up good plays, but when they get into the red zone, I don't think that Jackson Dart has been a very effective red zone passer. I mean, he's good with his legs. He can fake you out and cut inside or bounce the ball to the outside and get into the corner of the end zone. And we saw him do that today. But route trees and patterns and play calls and getting the ball into a receiver's hand and turning that into a touchdown, I don't see him doing that when they're in the red zone. And that's a concern for me. Now, that's not to say that it is Jackson Dart, and I got to dig deeper into the stats and really flesh out those numbers to see if that's a Jackson Dart thing or if it's a play thing. And honestly, I didn't look at the film today. I just saw the TV broadcast, but I want to know, is that a him thing or is that a coaching thing or maybe it's a combination of a few things, but his red zone passing touchdown percentage is not as good as him being an effective runner when a play breaks down or design runs to get into the end zone. And we know he can do that. He did it twice today, which was really cool to see. But that's something that does concern me. So whoever the next head coach is that comes in, I think they're going to have to take a look at that and make sure that he's getting better in that regard. And I think that he can be better because he's got some big targets. When you think about Theo Johnson, who I don't even think had a reception a day. If I'm looking at the stats, yeah, he did not have a single reception today. I'm not even sure he was on the field today, but he didn't have a reception today. Um, let's see. No, I don't see he was on the field today. Daniel Bellinger was out there. He had a couple of receptions. Big target. You need targets like that. We know that Tyrone Tracy Jr. is a former receiver. He knows how to get open in space. Wondell Robinson, is a great target in the red zone. He's so small he can get lost back there, but he was ineffective today in the red zone. And then I'm not going to bring up Darius Slayton because I don't know that he has ever been a good red zone target, but Isaiah Hodgins has been. So there are some pieces that are there, and we all know what Malik Neighbors can do, but he's been injured, so I'm not even going to dive into that too much. But I want to see that next head coach be able to use some of these pieces, and hopefully we draft a solid number two to play behind Malik Neighbors next year to fill that void because Darius Slayton as a two, I think he should be moved to a three. And Wondell Robinson, as far as I'm concerned, has solidified his spot as the slot receiver on his team. And I don't want to hear nothing from people. And people are gonna say, yeah, you can't pay him money. They can restructure Darius Slayton's deal to make sure that there's room for Wondell Robinson. They can do it. And they should do it because the guy went over 1,000 yards for the season today. Today alone, he had 113 receiving yards. Coming into the game, he had 901. So the guy's got 1,014 receiving yards for the year. He's top three in receptions. And in the slot, he's probably the best slot receiver in the NFL right now. At 5'8", he's a weapon. And the Giants need to find a way to keep this guy on the team because he's just good. And you don't want to let good players go because we see good players that started off on the Giants who are in the playoffs on other teams right now. Make sure you sign that man. So I wanted to say that about Dart. I do think that he looked very good today. He was very comfortable being himself, but when you try to box him into a package of being somebody who he is not, you're not going to get the same product on the field that created all this excitement with Giants fans, with coaches, with the league, quite frankly, all the records that he's broken. And for you, those of you who don't know, let me remind you, he's the first rookie quarterback with 400 plus passing yards, two or more rushing touchdowns in a single game. And he's also, let's see, he had two rushing touchdowns today, which solidified his status as an unprecedented rushing threat when he's in the red zone. This guy's just good, right? Some other noteworthy career records and accolades so far this year because he's still got another game to play against the poorest defense of the Dallas Cowboys. He's the first quarterback in NFL history to score a rushing touchdown in 5 consecutive games. Again, we need to see them create plays and draw up schemes that will allow him to pass the ball and not always have to rush the ball and take hits because those hits is what had them really scared to play him moving forward. But he's also the first quarterback in NFL history to have 1,800 plus passing yards, 400 plus rushing yards, and 20 plus total touchdowns within his first 9 regular season starts. Now make that 22 in his first 11 regular season starts. First rookie quarterback with multiple games featuring 240 plus passing yards, 60 plus rushing yards, and at least 2 total touchdowns. And he was the first rookie quarterback to defeat a reigning Super Bowl MVP in prime time within his first career start. So the kid's just good. He's accumulating all these accolades. He solidified in my mind, his position as being a franchise quarterback of the New York Football Giants. A lot of chatter out there, people talking about draft Mendoza. Mendoza is an unproven commodity. Jackson Dart has shown what he can do in this league. Granted, there are some things that he still needs to do to improve his game, but his starting point is really good. And you heard the announcers talking about it. You got a couple of quarterbacks who are going to the playoffs this year who their first year as starting quarterbacks, they lost 11 plus games. And this year they are in the playoffs and they're looking good. So I think we have our guy and he's going to do well. And I'd like to see him to continue to be our quarterback. Another thing I took notice of is I want to talk a little bit about Deontay Banks because the Giants burned a first round pick on him. I believe he was the number 10 overall pick in the draft a few years ago, and he really has not lived up to his expectation. I think he was a good corner in the Wink Martindale system, but he has regressed to a point where he gets picked on whenever he has to come into the game to relieve Cordell Flott or Paulson Adebo or anybody else for that matter. He just hasn't been very good. And I just think he puts himself slightly out of position every time the receiver that he is on is targeted. And it has usually resulted in a first down on a third and long and forever or a touchdown. And a couple of times it wasn't his fault. They were just very well placed balls and great athleticism on behalf of the receivers. But they keep picking on him, and he has just not been very good, not consistently anyway. So his value as a corner, certainly as a top corner, cover corner, two corner, has dropped tremendously. I don't think there's a lot of value in him to be traded to another team, but where he has shown value, and I've paid attention to him on special teams, is he's a good special teams player. I don't even want to talk about the big open lanes that the Raiders gave him today to score on that kick return for a touchdown today, which give him credit. He did it, and it's going to go in the record books as a kick return for a touchdown for him. But they gave him a huge alley to work with, and it didn't require a whole lot on his part. Though he did his part, it didn't require a lot for him because there was just this huge alley for him to run up. He went virtually untouched 95 yards into the end zone. But on special teams, he always gets pretty good yards on a kick return, and I like him back there. I certainly like him back there much more than when they had Javon Holland back there. I don't think Holland should have been back there because you paid this guy all his money, and then you got this guy returning punts and kicks. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So I do think that there's a spot for Tay Banks, and I think with whoever the next defensive coordinator is that comes in, maybe he might be salvageable to come in those situations where he needs to relieve a player if they work on his technique to improve him in those areas. I, I've been a very harsh critic of Deontay Banks, and he's earned that, right? But I don't want to really give up on the kid yet. Find a home for him on specials, and I think he can do well. He's shown us he can do well. I don't even want to talk about what I think. He's shown us on special teams that he is effective. So I'd like to see him stay there. I also want to talk about Ben Saul's got to call Saul. We finally listen. Anybody who think we don't have a kicker, you are delusional and you haven't been watching football because Ben Souls has been very effective as a kicker for us. This guy came from Pitt. I forget the nickname they had for him, but he was like automatic when he was at Pitt. And for him to come in, go on a practice squad, then be thrown into his first game last week where he didn't miss last week and today he didn't miss again today. He was 2 for 2 on field goals, 4 for 4 on extra points. Keep in mind, one of those extra points, he was pushed back to the 40 plus yard line to make that kick, and each one of his kicks were right down the middle. I think we have a kicker. Please do not undervalue the importance of us finally having a kicker who can kick the ball. We have needed this in the worst possible way. The only thing that he did so far that I wasn't happy with was his first kick to kick off the game went out of bounds. But you can kind of blame that on the weather because it was windy that day. So I think that might have had something to do with it. But we finally have a kicker. Abdul Carter. Can we talk about Abdul Carter for a minute? He is finally becoming the player that we wanted, that we thought we were getting when we drafted him number 3 last year. He has finally, I'm going to say he went through a maturation process through this season, and it is paying huge dividends. and he puts a lot of pressure on a quarterback. And when he's not putting pressure on them, he's tackling for a loss. His numbers for the day, let me just bring them up real quick because he had another big day um, at that linebacker position. Let me bring it up. Where is it? Abdul Carter. Here we go. He had three total tackles. He had a half a sack today. I think he did have he jumped off sides at one point, which negated a sack from Dexter Lawrence, which was unfortunate. But his pressure, his tackle for loss, two tackles for a loss. This is the guy who we wanted to see in four quarterback pressures today. This is the guy that we wanted to see, and not just in spurts, but consistently. We wanted to see the guy who came in here with the attitude of, I want Lawrence Taylor's number. Okay, you need to show us something. He hasn't shown us that until lately. Lately, Abdul Carter has been playing very well. I don't know if a byproduct of that is when Charlie Bullen became the interim DC. I think Shane Bowen was just really bad. But whatever it is, whatever has happened with him maturing, whatever has happened with him in those private conversations that happened between him and Burns and Dex and Thibodeau, keep that shit going because he is finally becoming the player that we hoped that he would be when we drafted him. All right, my next item on my list, Wondell Robinson, I already talked about. He needs to be a priority for the Giants to re-sign him, keep him on this team. He is too good of an asset to let go. I don't want to hear nothing about we don't have the money because we paid Darius Slayton. Restructure that shit. Restructure it, stretch it out, give him some more money up front if you have to. But whatever you need to do, you keep Wondell Robinson on this team. Now, I'm not saying overpay the guy, but I'm saying you pay him and you structure his contract in a way that makes him happy and keeps him a New York Football Giant because he's going to only continue to improve. Look at this, the synergy that he's already developed with Jackson Dart, who is a rookie. This guy has had his best season of his career under a rookie quarterback. You can't make this shit up. You need to figure a way to keep him on the team. I don't know that Joe Shane is capable of the. I don't want to just throw him completely under the bus, but I don't want Joe Shane on the team. But whoever becomes our general manager, even if it remains to be Joe Shane, please figure a way to keep Wondell Robinson on this team. He is just playing very well. And I don't want to see him in another team's uniform, going to the playoffs and maybe winning a Super Bowl next year, putting up numbers like this. 1,000 yards, 1,014 yards he got for the season so far. Keep this guy on our team. We really need him. He's only got, let's see, uh, yeah, that's a hell of an output that he's put on the field for us. So I really like for them to keep him. I want to see what he has for the season. 4 total touchdowns this year. I mean, that number isn't as high as it could be, but again, I think I blame part of that on the play calling when we're in the red zone. I don't think the Giants have done, and I don't care who's been calling the plays. I don't think they've done a really good job on their red zone offense other than running the ball in. So, next thing, Bo is getting good reps. As unfortunate it is that Andrew Thomas went down with a hamstring injury, this has given him Bo a great opportunity to get some reps and to refine his game as the Giants swing tackle. I don't think that they should let Illuminor go, although he pissed me off by getting two false start penalties in the early stages of the game. In fact, I believe if he wouldn't have gotten those penalties, we would have probably marched down the field and scored on that first drive. But he had two big penalties on the first drive of the game, which is not good. Although I do like Illuminor, and I think the Giants should find a way to keep him. And I think Bo should be our swing tackle because he's just played well. He's getting much better on run blitzes, on run plays. he finds the right person to block downfield to make sure the running backs pick up a few extra yards on each play. You saw today, he bounced out to the outside. He secured those blocks that made sure that Singletary and Tyrone Tracy Jr. were able to pick up the yards they needed to pick up first downs or whatever the play was. And then in pass pro, I thought he was sufficient. He's definitely not an Andrew Thomas, but he does enough so that you don't feel like holy shit, our quarterback is about to get killed out there. I think Bo is playing well, and I think these reps that he's getting during Andrew Thomas's absence is only going to make him a much better depth piece for the Giants. So I like him. Keep doing what he's doing. And I know that Crosby wasn't in there and they sat him down for the year and he wasn't playing against the best talent. But when he came in last week, he didn't do poorly. I mean, you could see that he came in cold and he wasn't in the right place a couple of different times. He gave up some pressures and rushes. However, once he settled in, he started playing better. And this week he played a whole lot better. So I think that he's doing well. Already talked about Dart and how I think he needs to be allowed to play his game. I think that when he's playing his game and he's not worried about or he doesn't have the coaches having him run 13 straight running plays, he's very effective. He gets the job done. And he's exciting to watch. I think he protected himself pretty well today. There was a couple of plays where there was one play where he took a shot. He got into the end zone and you guys bell rung a little bit. His helmet was damn near about to come off, but the hit looked worse than I think it was, um, at least from the TV angles that we saw on the broadcast. They looked a little bit worse than they actually were. He also dipped out of bounds when he needed to. I don't think he took any unnecessary hits. I don't think that the defenders were targeting him either, based on the rumor or the I don't know, the idea that he's a concussion prone quarterback. So I think he played well, but I also think that you have to allow him to play within his game if he's going to be effective. So I did like also Charlie Bullen's aggressive play calling. I thought he played or coached a really good game. I love the blitz packages that he put together. I don't know what the blitz rate was today, but I think it was pretty high. They got to the quarterback four times today. Brian Burns got another sack and a half today. Darius Alexander got another sack. You had, who was it? Already talked about Andrew Carter got a half a sack today. And then there was Flanagan Fowles got in there on a sack today too. So I thought the Giants did really good with their pressures. I don't like the fact that there were three fourth downs converted in a row on a single drive. I thought that on that last play where they gave up the touchdown, they should have brought four, but instead they had four at the line, but only brought three and dropped the other guy in the coverage. And even doing that, they weren't able to prevent them from scoring. With all those defenders playing zone back there, a couple guys playing man, they weren't able to keep them out of the end zone, which was highly disappointing. I think the Giants are much better when they're getting good pressure on the quarterback at disrupting these plays. But I do like Bullen's defensive play calling for this game. I thought that he had these guys playing hungry. They wanted to win, and it showed. And even though the score was 34-10, 27 of those points were put on the board by offense. 7 was by defense, and you got to give Charlie Bullen credit. 2 weeks in a row, the defense has scored. Actually, this week was special teams. Last week's was defense. But the defense has put the offense in position to score 2 weeks in a row, which was really, really good to see. And the last thing I want to talk about is Bobby Okereke. I think he continues to play at an extremely high level. He's a step slower, but he's still producing. He came into the game with 130 tackles, top 10 in the league again. Big interception. dropped back into coverage. He switched off on a guy, switched back, made the pick on the tight end, and then he returned the ball. I don't know how many yards it was, but maybe 40 yards he returned that pass for. It was really good to see him play that well. Shane Belton also had a interception return for a few yards as well. So the defense played pretty good, although I think our secondary is it leaves you with a lot to be desired. Today, they played well. Granted, it was a bad team they played, and you can't get too excited about beating a bad team the way they beat them. But they did. That's what you're supposed to do, right? When you play a bad team, you're supposed to beat the brakes off of them. The Giants did that today, 34-10. And they beat them on the road. First road win since 2024. 2022, I think it was. Long time that it's been since the Giants won a road game. So overall, it was a victory. A victory that knocked us out of the number one overall draft position to the number two, which is still a nice place to be. You can still trade down and get a bunch of picks. And a part of them winning, and I would say unconsciously without saying so, behind closed doors, they won't admit it. They didn't want the top quarterback anyway. So they were okay with winning this game, getting reps for some of the guys that needed to get reps, putting other players on film who may not be Giants next year. They played they didn't play themselves out of a good draft pick for next year because the number two pick is still a good pick. Next week is the Dallas Cowboys at home. I will be at that game. I don't know what's going to happen. I think it can go one of two different ways. The Giants could end up winning that game and winning it handsomely, or Dallas will do what Dallas has done to the Giants for a long time now, find a way to beat us in a game that they should lose. And they've did it for a long time, and it is sickening. I'm over it. But we are where we are. We are now 3-13 with one final game remaining on the schedule. The Dallas Cowboys has Dak Prescott, who is having a career year. They've got good receivers on their team, but I think their defense is straight ass. And it shows because every week they're giving up a bunch of points to a bunch of different teams. They did it to the Giants. Giants put up a 40 burger when we played them and just couldn't close the deal. But we're going to talk about that game on the pregame show later on this week. But for now, the Giants won. For Giants fans, we finally get a victory Monday. We finally get a road win. We finally see our head coach we get to see him at the podium after the game talking about all the things that went well. And we finally get to see a locker room victory speech, which we haven't seen for a very long time. So good win for the Giants. I guess, but number two pick in the draft isn't bad either. If the Giants should win next week, I don't know how far that will drop us down, but again, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for now, thank you guys for joining us. Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so every time we drop some new content, you're one of the first ones to be notified. Appreciate you guys for joining us. Go Big Blue.